Hi, this is Mike from Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and on today's video we'll be taking a look at a ultra cheap case. Well, it was cheap if you managed to bag the bargain that we posted on our Discord and also in the community tab. This is the SaharaGaming Alien, and it's 30 quid. Keep watching to find out more. Okay, so first of all, 30 quid is what we said at the beginning of the video. Now officially this on SaharaGaming's site is normally £60, and at which point I would say, if I'm completely honest with you, avoid it like the plague. It isn't worth £60. But they did have a special offer code on, which was the code ALIEN with a capital A, which will probably be posted in the video description, just in case it's still available. It probably will sell out pretty quickly at 30 quid, I'll be completely honest with you. And for £30 actually, you do get an awful lot for your money. You get an ATX form factor case. You also get 4 addressable RGB fans, which are controlled by a built-in hub, which we'll take a look at a little bit later. You also get a tempered glass side panel, not an acrylic one, which is always good. And you get what I would say is a rather unique looking case. It may not be to everybody's taste, but if you're looking at flipping a PC, building a cheap PC, or maybe you're upgrading your existing PC and you want something to put your existing parts into to make a secondary PC, this is actually a pretty good shout. There are a few caveats which we'll go through as we go through the review. Some things you are going to have to look out for because this is not going to be the easiest of cases to build in, and there's also going to be some things that you're going to want to change from the kind of the factory setup. Normally from the factory this comes with the 4 fans pre-installed, normally 1 in the rear, 2 in the top unusually, and 1 in the front, which kind of makes sense because these are the areas that you can actually see. What I've done is I've gone ahead and actually taken the 2 from the top and put them into the front, and we'll go through the reasons why a little bit later. So anyway, let's go through the case. We'll do a teardown, take a look inside, give you my kind of impressions, my thoughts. Obviously, I have paid for this out of my own money. It's not been sent to us free of charge for review by SaharaGaming, although we have worked with them previously on videos, which you can probably check out up here. So yes, I've invested my own time and money into this, and hopefully it's going to pay off. There's a few things which I'm slightly unsure about, but we'll go through that as we go through the teardown. So let's start with the side panel. So as you can see, the side panel is a tempered glass side panel. This is a full-size panel. There's no edging to it whatsoever, and it's held on by 4 thumb screws. The thumb screws aren't captive, which is quite normal for tempered glass panels. There is a very, very delicate smoke tint to it. Could be beneficial, might not be. It depends on the end user. The panel's held on with some rubber grommets there, nothing else other than that, so obviously do be careful. And if we peel back this film, which is on both sides, you can see there still is a relatively darkish tint to it. Not too bad at all, and I think most people will be pretty happy with it. I actually prefer that than being a completely clear glass because it shows up all kinds of things, at least with this. If you do get fingerprints on it, which really is kind of realistic unless you carefully hold it by the edges, they're not going to show up too much. As soon as we take the side panel off, we can take a look inside. Now, like I said, this will fit ATX, micro ATX and ITX boards. I always say ITX and micro ATX, even though it is an ATX form factor. Some people might want to do that. Micro ATX, I guess, wouldn't look too bad in there. ITX, I think, realistically, is probably something that people will not do. ITX boards are generally very expensive, and this is a cheap case, so it wouldn't make a lot of sense putting it in there. And also, you've got a lot of room for PCI Express expansion, so why would you want to use an ITX board? Anyway, I'm digressing. Looking actually inside, if I tilt this back a little bit more, and we've done some B-roll of this so you can see it a little bit better. The first thing which you notice actually is how close the motherboard is going to be to the actual top of this, which is one of the reasons why I've taken the 2 included fans from the top here and moved them into the front. Now this is for ease of assembly. When we go to actually put the motherboard in, which we will be doing a full video on this once I actually work out what the heck I'm going to put in it. So if you want to see how that goes, don't forget the subscribe button and the chime icon, and you'll be notified of future video releases where you'll see this and all kinds of other stuff that we review and check out on the channel. Anyway, back to this. So yeah, it is going to be extremely close. You can see the pillars at the top there. They're virtually right next to the top. So even though the fans on the top are offset a little bit, you still potentially could get problems with slightly higher RAM, or if you've got a motherboard with particularly large VRM heat sinks, you may find some problems there. Also, another reason is because there isn't actually a EPS power supply connector pass-through at the top. It is actually so close that there isn't room to put one in. So you will need to bear that in mind when you do your build, is to actually route your EPS power cable, if you need one, up through the back through the CPU outlet, which, yeah, could be a little bit of a gotcha for some people if you're building this. Maybe it's a first time build. You get it all in, get your motherboard in, then you go to put your power supply in, and you'll be like, oh, right, so I've got to take the motherboard out to actually put that in. That's a bummer. Anyway, so there you go. At least now if you've watched this video before you've built in this case, you'll know what to do. So yeah, put your EPS cable through first of all. If you've got a modular power supply, that's going to be pretty easy to do. If you haven't and you're using a semi-modular or a fully wired power supply, I would suggest definitely when you're building this to put the power supply in the very first thing you do. So moving on, talking about the power supply, we've got some decent cutouts here on the side. Now again, these cutouts, because this is a relatively squat case, the cutouts are in a slightly unusual place. So we've got some here, as you can see, there's 3 there, which if you've got a motherboard which only uses the 6 mounting pillars, then it's going to be absolutely fine. If you're using a slightly wider board, which takes the 9 size, then you're going to end up having to put the cables through for your power through these bits here, which could change things if you're maybe wanting to put a radiator in here. I don't think many people will, but certainly if you do, just those little things to think about in advance before you actually start your build. Also, something else to take of note is on the side here is 2 mounting areas for SSDs or 2.5-inch drives, so they will be slotted on the side there. Again, if you're putting those in, do bear in mind, obviously, cable routing, etc, etc. So there are a few gotchas about this, which you really do need to take advantage of and kind of think ahead, otherwise you may get to the point where you just simply can't do your build in this case. Where things get a little bit easier is on this bottom section. So we've got some actually nice sized cutouts on the bottom. So you've got one over this side, which is going to be for your things like HD audio connector, maybe USB 2, that sort of thing. And there's another one a little bit further across here, which is going to be, again, front panel I/O, USB 2 connectors, that kind of stuff. Possibly even an RGB connection should you want to use it. On the bottom, you've got 2 mounting areas here, and they do include screws as well. So you can actually put some of the fans, if you want to, you can put them on this bottom section to try and pull some of the air from the bottom up through to your graphics card, that kind of thing. Again, down to individual. I would probably err against doing that. There doesn't seem to be a great deal of airflow in this basement section. Although we have got a fan at the bottom, it isn't the most powerful of fans, so you're not going to get a great deal of airflow there. So yeah, I think adding extra fans there is probably just going to be more for show rather than actual practicality. Looking towards the front, as you can see, we've got the 3 fans there installed. Again, normally it would come with just one in the middle. I've put the ones from the top in the top and bottom position there to kind of fill this section out. Being that we've got some airflow coming in through the front and the top is more for exhaust, I figured it'd be better to try and push air in rather than just exhaust air out and have like a negative pressure setup where it's going to try and pull dust in from every nook and cranny, which is often difficult to control dust-wise. I think that's pretty much it for the interior. Let's take a look at the front panel. So looking at the front panel, this is where this case basically is going to be the make or break for most people. The design is somewhat unusual. We've got the alien look to it. So we've got this nice shaped section here and here, and obviously mesh in the middle there. So again, default setup, you're going to have that single fan there pulling air straight in through this mesh. That is the only level of filtration on this case. So again, filtration is something which, again, this is a £30 case. You wouldn't expect too much more. The fans aren't particularly powerful, so this mesh is going to be absolutely fine and will probably stop the large majority of dust. Although, yeah, it hasn't got a very fine mesh filter internally to get those smaller particles. Taking the front panel off, actually very simple to do. It's just a grab handle on the bottom, which you may need to raise it up off the desk a little bit for. So all you need to do is to get it lined up and just pull it off. So it's just held on with plastic pop pins. Again, something else which I've actually done to this case to modify it slightly before doing a build in it is to actually route some of these cables. Now, originally when it came out of the box, this bunch of cables was actually going through the top fan hole, which is a little bit untidy and also then would prevent you putting any fans in here. As you can see now, I've got the 3 Pirate fans in the top, middle and bottom sections there. You will notice as well, they are actually mounted behind the case rather than being in front of the case. Again, if you're buying this from brand new, you'll find that this sensor fan pre-installed will actually be mounted on the front. Obviously, because of the way that the case is kind of angled, it slopes in on the top and slopes in on the bottom. So if you wanted to put a fan in front, you can only do it with the middle one. The 2 at the top and bottom would have to be behind anyway. So again, something else to bear in mind. This also does reduce the amount of room you've got actually inside for a graphics card. So if you're using an older graphics card, then obviously that's going to take another 25mm off of the actual total. And actually I should mention, power supply wise, you can put in pretty much any power supply you want up to about 200mm. Graphics card wise, they do state on the box up to 325mm, although obviously with these fans in, you probably want to reduce that down to around about 300mm maximum. CPU cooler height, we've got clearance up to 165mm, so that will take into account pretty much most of the kind of generic tower coolers that we get with 120mm fans. Things like the Noctua D15 technically would fit, but you find with that, with the front mounted fan normally raises up slightly more because of RAM clearance, etc. So I would say that's a no-go, but realistically I think most people will be putting in here something along the lines of maybe the 3s34, the Evo 212, or maybe a Gamax 400, that kind of thing. So you're kind of more regular 120mm tower coolers, which will fit absolutely no problems at all. So anyway, back to this front panel. So yes, I have kind of pre-wired it and taken the wires from this section, taken them across because they were all kind of dangling down. And this makes it actually easier because in its default configuration, if you've got it through there, when you actually pull the front panel off, it kind of stops about here. So you've only got about an inch or so to work with. Whereas with this cable being routed down and going through this bottom hole, it actually makes it easy. So you can take the panel off, put it on the floor, dust your fans, etc., dust the inside should you need to, which you probably will do because there's a severe lack of dust filtration. But yeah, just makes it a little bit easier to actually manage. And when you want to put it back on, it just snaps into place. And there we go. That is the front panel back on. We'll show you this lit up. We've probably seen it in some of the B-roll as well, but we'll put the power supply in a little bit later just so we can go through and show you how the RGB works, etc., etc. Moving around to the back is another area of potential problems. As you can probably see, we have got this section here which is punched out. Now the reason for that is because there is so little room in the back for cable management, it's not even funny. I'm going to take off the side panel now, which is held on with thumb screws. They're not captive ones, but still it's nice to have some thumb screws rather than just traditional screws. So what you need to do is slide this backwards a little bit and that pops off. It is quite a flimsy-ish panel, very lightweight, not a great deal to it, but actually maintains its size and structure and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't bend a great deal. I guess that's because of the design of that sheet where it's been punched out. That does help with rigidity, and also it's going to help with things like cable management, because as you can see in the back, even though currently we don't even have a motherboard installed, we have a lot of cabling already. So first thing you can probably notice is the actual controller hub here. So this is one of Sahara's hubs. It's not the one that you'd normally buy if you're buying a standalone hub from Sahara's website. This is a slightly customized version of that. So this doesn't have option for any kind of pass-through for your motherboard's RGB or for the PWM signal. Everything is controlled from the hub and also from the included remote control. So yeah, there isn't a great deal of control actually on it. Fan speed wise, you've got the option of either high speed or low speed or off. On the remote control, there is actually a button which says on there fan auto. If you do that, it just turns them off because there isn't a pass-through. So you can pretty much ignore that. But yeah, other than that, there's not a great deal of control on there. You can obviously change the colors for the RGB, etc. But that is essentially it. Another thing to look out for when you're actually using this and plugging it in, even though this has 10 ports on there for the Sahara fans, which are those 6-pin ones, which are pretty much custom to SaharaGaming themselves, you do have to make sure that you plug them in order. So there has to be a fan plugged into fan header 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. If, for instance, you do a bit of cable management, and I've done this already earlier today, I plugged them into the other side just because it was more tidy for cable management. We didn't get any light in, so you do have to have something actually physically connected into fan port 1 for the RGB to actually work and function as it's meant to. This is actually installed on a piece of Velcro, and you can see when I pulled the Velcro, you could see the actual back panel there flexing a bit. Again, this is quite a cheap case, so those kinds of things are acceptable in my opinion. I would think with this, realistically, because of the lack of room we've got behind here, you're probably going to be better off once you've decided what's connected where, and you've got this connected to the SATA connection, which is actually got, there are two connections coming off of this actually, one of which is your SATA for power, and the other is a receiver for the IR blaster, which is for the remote control. So this is infrared. It does require line of sight, so you may want to actually pass this cable through to the interior of your case, maybe pointing towards the glass so that you can change the color from the outside. I've noticed already when using this that the range on the remote control isn't very good. So whether or not there's a battery in there, whether or not it's just because it's IR, I'm not entirely sure, but yeah, do have to be quite close to actually get it to register. Moving this out of the way with all those connections on, you can see we've got obviously 4 fans, so 3 in the front, 1 in the back, all connected to the hub. Underneath, a reasonable amount of room, not too bad at all. We've got section in the back here for power supply. Again, power supply wise, ideally you're probably going to want to go for a modular or semi-modular in here because of the limited room for clearance, etc. And otherwise you're going to end up trying to tuck wires away everywhere. It's actually quite a snug fit as well. Even getting in our cheapo power supply, we did have to kind of bend this bottom bit down just to get it to fit in. So tolerances are exceptionally tight. Next up to that, we've got a drive caddy. I'll move those wires out of the way. So there is a 2-bay caddy there. So it comes with rails, so you can put in 2 3.5 inch drives. Sadly, those are just rails, literally rails, which attach to the side of the drive. So you can see these in the accessories pack there. Those are screwed to the side of the drive. So there's no option of actually putting 2.5 inch drives in there. If you do want to put 2.5 inch drives, especially mechanical ones, they are going to have to go into these sections here, either on the front or the back, depending on how you see fit. Although you might struggle if they're on the back because this is really your cable management channel. So you might want to put them on the front. Yeah, shame that you can't put the drives in there. You could if you want to, obviously just get some Velcro and just Velcro the drives. SSDs generally don't create a lot of heat, so you could Velcro them into that section somehow if you wanted to. Be a little bit of a shame there's not some plastic sleds you can actually put them in, but hey ho, that is the way it goes. Actually, lots of tie down points in here. So we've got 3 at the top there. There's a couple down the side, and also along this channel here, there's also 1, 2, 3, 4 there, which actually will be quite handy. I think for the front I/O connections, we can just cable tie those up along there, and that'll make a nice neat job of it after the power supply is installed, obviously, because otherwise it's going to be a bit tight tolerance. In terms of the front I/O, so we've got a USB 3.0. We've also got our reset switch, power switch, all those usual things coming off the front panel. There is HD audio connection and also a USB 2 connection for the front panel. So yeah, pretty much everything you'd expect to see there. No real surprises. I was a little bit concerned when I routed the cables down the front of that channel in the front panel there, just to see if the HD audio connector would actually still physically reach to where it needs to go in the motherboard, and actually passing that through there. As long as it's clipped up at the top section, it's going to be fine. If you wanted to clip it along the bottom section, then you're definitely going to struggle if you do it in the configuration that I've got. So that's pretty much it for interior at the back here. Underneath, not a great deal to be excited about. We've got a single removable metal mesh filter thing, and I dislike these immensely, and this one is no exception. It's already got a little bit of a crease in it, so it's not going to be particularly good for filtration. Although in this case, obviously, because we've got that ventilation on the top section, you could, if you want to, mount the power supply fan up, or you can mount it fan down. Again, the choice is entirely up to you. I'm actually going to leave that in a book or something overnight, I think, to try and flatten that kink out. Not much else going on here. The drive tray, as you can see, is riveted in, so unfortunately there's no adjustment on that. You can't unscrew it and move it or anything, so if you wanted to remove it, you'd have to remove 2 rivets there, 2 rivets there, and also the subsequent rivets in the other side as well. So essentially I would say it's not removable. You've got 4 plastic feet with foam padding on the bottom, so that is not too bad at all, and the foam obviously will absorb some vibrations, etc. Moving to the top of the case, so as you can see, we've got the removable magnetic filter, which is pretty much common these days, and you've got space there to mount 2 120mm fans. You won't be able to get a radiator in there, I don't think. Realistically, because of the clearance for the motherboard and also the way it's laid out, I think you'd probably struggle to get a radiator in there. I probably wouldn't even try, to be honest, but some of you might want to. If you do try it and it does work out for you, please do let us know, but I don't think I'm going to even attempt it because of those close tolerances. It just really isn't worth the bother. And also, I don't think we're going to have the airflow in here to really warrant having a radiator in that top section. On the front panel, so we've got a nice clicky power button. Next to that is a reset switch, which you can, if you want to, you can repurpose that as a means of changing the RGB. So you can connect the RGB hub to the reset switch to cycle through the colors should you wish to. You've also got hard drive activity and power LED. Next to that, USB 2.0. Then you've got your headset jacks, so microphone and earphones, another USB 2.0, and finally our USB 3.0. Taking a quick look at the back, so as you can see, because of the height of the I/O cutout here for the actual motherboard, it is pretty high up there, so yeah, you're not going to get really a radiator or anything else up there. It is going to be tight. You've got a section here for a 120mm fan, which is included. A little bit of vertical adjustment on there, but not a lot else. On the back, we've got the PCI Express breakout ports. Top one is replaceable. You can undo that, remove it. The rest of them are all fold-out ones, which, yeah, not any real surprise, I guess, at this price point. And at the bottom, we've got the cutout for our power supply. Speaking of which, I'm going to put a power supply in this now, and we'll fire up the RGB so you can see what it looks like. Okay, so we've got the power supply in, and as you can see the RGB is on. We've just basically used a jumper to get the power supply going. You can't obviously see many of the fans there, but if you're looking from a side view, depending where your PC is on your desk, etc., I think really that's probably going to be the nicer look, to see those on a side angle possibly, and illuminating some of your components. I think some of you may disagree entirely, and that is entirely your prerogative. You put your fans wherever you like. Looking at them in this particular configuration, you can see what is going on. Actually, if I take the front panel back off again, which is not quite as easy as I hoped it would be. Ah, there we go. It's come off a little bit easier this time. Practice makes perfect, as they say. So looking at the fans there, let's just put that down on the deck. So if you want to control them, you can use the remote control, which, nope, it doesn't like that. So if you get close enough to the, there we go. Yeah, you can see there's definitely a little bit of an issue with it in terms of the actual receiver itself. So again, you might find it actually beneficial to get the little IR cable, which is just coming out there. So there we go, that's a little bit easier. Yeah, still is very close proximity, which I'm not entirely keen on. That's something we may have to work on. Tempted even to maybe route it through this front section and maybe have it drill a small hole in actually the front of the case or something. I don't know, maybe have it pop out the bottom. Who knows? Anyway, I've also got it connected up to the reset switch, which is now over here, so I can actually go through on the reset switch. Nope, I plugged in the power supply one by mistake, so that's actually easier because the power supply button's bigger. So we can do that to cycle through the lighting cycle. So you press the power button, you can go through, toggle the usual things as you would normally. Then you've got your solid colours: green, blue, yellow, pale blue, pink, orange, white. The white actually looks really nice in this particular setup. I think that would actually probably work particularly well. There's a really nice contrast of white against the black of the case, because it is all pretty much jet black. Then you've got things like the chase setup there. Again, you can see it follows through. All the fans do the same thing. So you've got that on the various colours. Then you've got your RGB kind of mix. Then you've got the kind of trail one. I don't quite understand this one, if I'm completely honest with you, because it just does that once, and I think that's it. I think that's it, game over. That is, you've paid your money, you've had your twirl, oh no, it's done it again. So you can actually change the speed actually on the fan. So we do LED speed, if it'll actually get anywhere near it now. Let's change. There we go. So yeah, that makes it a bit faster, so you can change the speeds. I'm not entirely convinced about this remote control. I might actually change the battery and see if the battery is just a little bit flat. It takes a CR2025, so yeah, they're nice and easy to get hold of. Again, you can go through and change your colours. So there's not a huge amount of options in terms of colour combinations, so you are limited. I will stress again, you cannot pass through the RGB to your motherboard. So if you've got a motherboard which has got a really good RGB controller or addressable RGB controller, it makes no difference. This cannot be connected to it. So I think this case really, where its true benefits lie, are going to be, like we said from the beginning really, is for those kind of flip systems or those secondary systems. So you basically just need a case to put stuff in and maybe sell on older hardware, maybe an old AM3 setup, maybe an old Intel i5, that kind of thing, 2600K, 2700K, whatever. That is, I think, where this case would shine. Or even a kind of a budget build, maybe with a 3000G on the AMD side, that kind of thing. I think that is where this case will probably excel, because it looks nice. Once it's all done and built, obviously, if you sell it on, then the cable management and stuff and all that, those things aren't really your problem anymore, which is a terrible way to look at it. But if you're a PC builder or you flip PCs, you know what I'm saying. Things like this will grab attention. It does look particularly unusual with that front panel, as we said earlier. That is going to be what is going to be the key thing. Someone's going to see this on Facebook Marketplace or wherever you've listed it. They'll look at the design and go, oh yeah, I really like the look of that, and that is what is going to swing it for you. Regardless of what's inside it, I think the looks are going to be what does it for you. But anyway, let me know what you think about this one in the comment section. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of you with some very interesting comments on this. Maybe you've got ideas of your own. Potentially you've got ideas of what you'd like to see me put in this. Now obviously don't say things like a Ryzen 9 5950X with a 3990, because clearly it's not going to happen. I don't have those parts and I wouldn't put them in here anyway if I did. But I think realistically most people are probably going to end up with some sort of APU build in this. I think that's where it makes most sense. But yeah, we're open to your suggestions. Let us know what you think. I'm thinking 5600G might be a go, but if I need to find a cheapish motherboard to go in here which doesn't have any nice features on, so we can make the RGB do what it's meant to do and actually be controlled by all this stuff. Anyway, I've waffled on for way too long. If there's anything I didn't cover, you can find out more information at SaharaGaming's website. If the discount code is still operable, it is Alien with a capital A, in which case you get us for essentially $29.99 with free shipping. Otherwise, you're looking at $59.99, in which case I would say don't buy it. Definitely don't buy it. For £30, there are quite a few compelling reasons. Obviously, again, the looks. For included fans, you can't go too far wrong. And if you can find something better for the money, again, let us know in the comment section. We'll be glad to hear it. So anyway, I'm going to wrap this one up. I've been Mike. This is Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and hopefully we'll see you in the comment section. Thanks for watching.